One of my favorite types of people to witness and to celebrate are makers who have to overcome severe challenges in one way or another to grow successful businesses. They don't let their circumstances define them. Instead, they lean into their gifts and keep moving despite their challenges. And Stephanie Denault of Le Dragon Argenté, sorry, that's my best French right there, is no exception to that role. Stephanie is a guidepost, I would say, for makers and jewelers of all types who maybe are struggling with things like dyslexia or ADHD or lack of focus or whatever it might be. She's going to share her story today about how she doubled her sales last year from 130 to 265,000. Took her whole family on a 2-week Disney vacation with the money that she made from her jewelry company and finally paid herself an amazing wage. You're gonna love this story. So we're gonna dive in just a moment. But before I do, I wanna introduce myself. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer over here at Flourish and Thrive Academy. I'm the host of the Thrive by Design podcast and also the author of The Desired Brand Effect. And I help jewelry makers and designers grow their sales to multiple 6 and 7 figures through courses, coaching, and mentorship. And Stephanie is one of our students, and I asked her to be on the show today to talk a little bit about her experience last year, overcoming some pretty significant obstacles. She had a lot of her shows canceled. She had to pivot her business model. And instead of freaking out, she leaned in and started working on her business instead of in it. And you're gonna see the amazing result of that. And so she is a self-professed geek, which you're gonna hear a little bit more about why in just a moment, and has really leaned into her niche audience to grow a highly successful jewelry brand that is completely designed around her vision of success. So without further ado, let's dive in right into this episode. I am really excited to have Stephanie Denault on the show to talk a little bit about some fun things that have happened to her over the last year in her business. So Stephanie, welcome to the program.
Happy to be here.
I'm trying to get my best French accent on. It's not totally working, but you're from Quebec.
Yeah.
I was just on an interview with someone else from Quebec, and I can't even say, how do you say it in French? Quebec? Quebec? Okay. That's right. So I'm excited to have you because you had a great year last year. You said that it was one of the first years that you paid yourself the full-time salary that you really wanted to make. So I want to really dive deep into that and some of the things that you've done and to just talk about how your business has evolved and changed and grown over the last couple of years. So tell me a little bit about your journey into the jewelry industry.
Oh, well, that one is kind of fun. I was working as a jeweler. Well, I was in fine arts before I became a jeweler. And what happened is that I was, how do you put this? I was a fine artist student before. But what happened was I joined the program in fine arts and discovered I couldn't stand the egos of the classmates I was with. I have a fragile ego. So I discovered by fluke, one of my roommates I was living with was taking a trade school program in jewelry making to get an extra $100 a month on his welfare check. But after 15 minutes, he'd get fed up and just throw the projects across the room going, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. And look at what he's doing. Like, hey, hold on a second. I can do this. So I enrolled 2 years full time. I was living off of $7,500 a year to get through school because I was on those bursaries. Yeah. Being ADD and going to, I had a choice either working or going to school. I couldn't do both at the same time.
Yep.
Finished school, went to working for a couple of different shops. I worked 2 years at Hennish Jewelers production shop, making tennis bracelets and other gold jewelry. I worked a couple of years in repair shops, and I had worked 6 years as the assistant manager and technician at a retail store. I ended up leaving that job for health reasons. And during this entire time, I'd accumulated my workshop equipment, started making some stock on hand, and like doing a little bit of shows like once or twice a year. So my partner, Steven, said, well, now that you've gone full time, like you have time to think about it, why not give it a shot working at this full time? At the beginning, I was doing craft shows, I was doing juried events, church fairs, whatever. And I got approached by the owner of one of the owners of Comic-Con in Montreal, and asked, well, you have to have a table here. So he got me into Comic-Con, and it changed my whole direction of my clientele. Before I was doing a lot of selling to pretty much anyone. And you're always talking about focusing on your dream client, which is what I end up doing. And realized there's a huge market for people like myself who are allergic to cheap metal jewelry. Myself, I'm allergic to zinc, nickel, and cadmium.
Oh, everything. Like all the things they mix with stuff.
And everything that you'll find at Comic-Con, all the really cool stuff, I can't wear. I'll break on hives. So I started making stuff for myself, and then eventually moved on to making stuff for other people.
Yep.
At the same time, I'm still making stock from, I have some model designs from the 50s from a jewelry store that closed down back in 98. Celtic, classic 1950s signet ring, stuff like that. But I focus more on the geeky stuff. I ended up, the big thing that happened over the last little while was I do a lot of custom jewelry for cosplayers, which are people who dress up as character and go to Comic-Con.
Yes.
And it's a very specialized market. But for people like myself who have a hard time finding these kinds of items, it's very fulfilling to say, I made something for someone that can wear all the time. Because my theory is that making geeky jewelry, they can show off your fandom without having to take it off just for the show. You can wear it all the time, 24/7.
That's so cool, because that is a very specific niche, Comic-Con cosplayers. Or people who really like, fantasy and like all the things that are involved in that genre. So when you kind of like realize that this was your niche, like what are some of the things that you did to kind of lean into that?
What I did is I was trying to pretty much tap into the type of fandoms I like. I grew up watching MacGyver, Star Trek Next Generation, a lot of geeky stuff. Anime went back from the 80s. And I've been going to conventions since the early mid to late 90s. I've been going to Comic-Cons, anime conventions, and I knew the fandom already. So it was pretty easy to meet people who were looking for something custom. My first custom piece was a comic book artist from Montreal who was looking for a custom Green Lantern ring. And the guy weighs about 120 pounds soaking wet. And all the stuff he would find are large, bulky rings.
Yep.
He goes, I would just want a nice signet ring. I'm like, sure. So I did one measurement for him, and that it's been like that ever since.
We got a cat in the background.
Sorry.
What's your cat's name?
Max.
Max. We got Max in the background.
Yeah, Mr. Chatterbox. If anyone has a ginger, they know exactly what I'm talking about. My most recent success was a ring based off the anime Howl's Moving Castle. I designed it about 5 years ago for a cosplayer in Atlantic City, and I've been selling for a while. And I'd say October of 2020, it started getting popular, and it just kept ramping up. I went from selling one, maybe two a month, to selling 20 to 30 a week.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's
and
huge.
It turns out,
piece.
Yeah. Because no one else was making it in precious metal. with the options I give, because I love gemstones. I'm a rock hound first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And I would give people options for different stones, not just birthstones or just the standard colors. I would give people, someone wants a tanzanite, you can have a tanzanite. If you want a sapphire, you can have a sapphire. And giving people the options in different sizes, because I range from anywhere from a 2 to a 16. Mm-hmm. And people are often finding that they don't have those options when they're buying rings. And it gave me a larger niche. And the reason why my rings became so popular is I had a couple of customers apparently were reviewing my stuff on TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah. TikTok was the reason I went viral.
That's so great. I love it.
I didn't know about it. I couldn't figure out why the rings started going popular. I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a resurgence of interest in this older anime, but great, cool. And the customer says, oh, no, my daughter saw your video about this ring on TikTok. Okay, good to know. So it was interesting because at the beginning of the pandemic, I was so worried about keeping the business going because about 35-40% of my income was trade shows. Mm-hmm. And with the pandemic, no shows. So I was a little worried. I'm like, okay, is my business going to survive? And with the sale of this ring, it didn't just save my business, it actually propelled it fast forward, and allowed me to expand. I was able to start hiring out. I have my caster also does wax pulling for me instead of me doing it at my home.
Yes.
Because I pretty much did everything except for casting originally. But with the business growing, I needed to actually be able to focus on other things. Like as you're always saying, it's important to work on the business instead of in the business. Yep. So it's a big deal. So I ended up hiring a VA at the end of last year. She's helping out my social media stuff because I suck at social media posting and blogs. I have ADD and I'm dyslexic. So writing papers and blogs is like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
It just feels enjoyable. Well, what I also did is I started at the beginning of the pandemic, I decided to take the leap because you've been pushing in the Flourish and Thrive Academy for years. You should always get off Etsy and get your own website going. So I finally gave myself time to do it and got my website up. It's not exactly how I wanted to look, but it's getting there. But most of my revenue is still coming from Etsy. The hardest part with Etsy is the fees, because now the fees are much higher. It's averaging between 10 to 22% to my sales as of April 1st.
Are you taking actions to move people to your website and build your email list?
Yeah. In the spring retreat, we were talking about incentives to customers to get them to move off Etsy to come to you. So one of the suggestions I had received was gift cards. Mm-hmm. So I made a whole series of gift cards to include with my packaging with a gift code that like come by at my shop, $15 off your next order. And it has helped a bit. Most recently, what I did is on my business cards, which I include with all my packaging, I actually has my social media links on the back of the business card.
Yes.
So people can find me on my social media, and on my social media profile is my website link.
There you go.
So you go there, you can buy directly from my website. I had a customer who was looking at one of my Howl rings, and she was looking for pictures while I was at Disney. And I told her, well, I can't provide you any pictures right now, but go check on my website. I have the listing with all the different photos because Etsy only has a limit of 10 photos per listing. Whereas Shopify, you can put as many as you want.
Exactly.
She went in there, and instead of buying the $150 birthstone ring she wanted to buy, she bought a $200 ring with a Sangha orange songa sapphire.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had like many more options to be able to sell higher price point items, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's certain items I don't sell on Etsy just because they're a higher price point.
Yeah. You design custom work and then you work with people to design something in their vision, but then you also turn that into like a production like piece so that you can make it over and over again. Is that what that's what I'm getting here? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I do limited productions. I can't say limited run, but most of my stuff I make to order. So I don't do a lot of ready stock items, except for the stock I take with me to shows and events. Because people are usually looking for rings with stones with different sizes. And because the sizes are never the same, I'll have weeks where I'll get mostly sizes 6 to 7. And then I have another week, which will have a range between a 10 to a 13. So you never know what size people want. So I find it easier to make on demand for people in the size they want with the custom stones. Instead of trying to stock every single size with every single stone, that's a lot of wasted money.
And how does that help your inventory control?
Very well. It means that I don't have a lot of raw material inventory sitting on hand except for gemstones. Most of my gemstones I buy on eBay and bulk lots, anywhere between 20 to 50 stones at a time. So that's allowed me to help control my inventory, and depending on how many stones I need, like I'll order as required. In the case of the silver, because right now silver is very expensive.
Yes.
I don't know about in the US, but here in Canada, it's averaging about 45 bucks an ounce.
Yeah.
So
I mean, same, but just like US monetary,
Yeah. Well, because of that, I don't want to tie up all my money in raw material if I don't have to.
Smart move.
Not everyone can do that. Like some people, like I have a longer processing time. My processing time is about a week to 2 weeks, depending on the items. But I find my customers always are willing to wait for it.
Well, they're probably willing to wait because you do such a specialized product too. It's not something that everyone's doing. And, it's in a very specific niche, and that's allowed you to grow. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show today is because you did have significant growth. And, I don't know how things are in Quebec, but where I am in the United States, everything's open, but things are starting to open up, and it has been open for a while, but things are starting to open up in some of the other areas of the country. And so how have you grown during this time when, a lot of your business was really coming from in-person sales? Like, what are some of the things that you've done to like really help expand? Because you had a significant growth last year.
Yes. Well, what I've done is that I did something that I hadn't done and I should have done before, but I just had lacked the time, is focus some time and energy into working on my business. I oftentimes is like, I'll take care of this later. I'll take care of this later.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
And yeah. And what I decided was finally, you know what? I'm going to focus on the business. I'm actually going to invest the time and energy to grow it, to actually set up the website. So I took a course with Shelley Easter to create my Shopify site. I started focusing more on the laying the foundation course. And then at the end of 2020, I decided to join Momentum. And I had a one-on-one with Quay at the end of the first quarter of 2021. And she really pushed me to working on my pricing, working on reevaluating how I price my stuff, raising my average order value. I was really hesitant.
Yeah.
At the rings that I'm selling now, most of the stuff I sell is in silver. I sell in bronze, stainless steel, and gold. And I was underpricing myself. I wasn't doing a pricing formula and charging enough to make it so I was having a higher order value and a higher profit margin. So I end up raising my prices by about, on the average, about 25%, depending on the item. The rings that had gone viral, they went from the birthstone, silver and birthstones from $125 to $150.
Wow.
And I was a little hesitant because I was afraid, okay, I'm going to lose all these customers. No, I can't. I still can't keep them in stock.
It's so crazy. So raising your prices didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, it's.
I mean, except for make you more money.
Yes.
Right?
Well, the making more money actually helped a lot because I had been one of those people that also I was not paying myself. I was putting money into paying the house bills and whatnot, but most of the money would just end up being squirreled away back to the business. The Profit First system from the book you had mentioned about 2-3 years ago, I read up on it and like, okay, the pot system seems to make a lot of sense. So what I did is I created the pots for me. I have a deposit account, and the money that was deposited into my account, I would take 30% for my pay. I would put 20% for the taxes because our taxes are higher than in the US, and 5% for profit savings to pay for large equipment if I have to upgrade some tools. And the rest would stay in the operating costs and would stick to the budget of the operating costs. And it was a struggle. I started off in end of August of 2020. And for the entire 2021, I paid myself and made enough money to be able to squirrel away and pay for my vacation to Disney.
That's awesome.
It's the first time I didn't have to borrow money to go on vacation.
Wow. That's like awesome. You like really plan this. You're like, I'm doing this and I'm going to like save and like think about like a business owner. And
part of why I became a business owner is I wanted to prove people wrong. I grew up with people assuming I wasn't going to amount to much in life. I was going to be one of those people that they expect, because I was dyslexic, and ADD, they assumed I was lazy, was not putting effort into anything, and they had assumed I was not going to do much in my life, be on welfare, have a bunch of kids, and that was it. That's all. I'm one of those people. It's like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So I was the first person in my family to actually really open my own business, and we bought a house. We were able to fund a lot of the money for my own business. And it's just been amazing. I'm like someone who is not supposed to do anything with their life. I'm able to say, I'm a business owner.
You're making
I'm
me
successful.
Like tear up right now. I'm serious. Like this makes me so happy for you because like first of all, I'm really sorry that you didn't have that support behind you because that's really hard. If people just make assumptions about you and you're just like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Well, like when I went on loans and bursaries to go through jewelry school, like, as I said, it was $7,500 a year. It was a government funded trade school. So like it cost me $140 a year to go to school. And the rest was living expenses. And my stepmother was like, you're going to go into debt to learn how to make beaded necklaces? I'm like, no, I'm going to go into debt to learn how to make your wedding ring.
Yep, exactly.
So several years later, she was bragging about how her daughter's a jeweler and like how amazing she is. And I'm like, wow, that was a different tune.
I know, exactly. You've shown some success and all those things. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, wish it's nice that she's proud of you.
Well, I wish she unfortunately died in July of 2020 from cancer. But I would have loved to have seen her reaction to how it was at the end of last year, like how things had gone. Both my mom and my dad are super proud of me. My dad likes to talk about his successful daughter, like how she's managed to, like, despite everything, is making a name for herself.
Yeah, it's almost like, I can see how they must be so proud. Or I'm sure your mom's looking down on you and just thinking how proud she is of you too,
Yeah.
Which is great. So let's talk about how your business grew last year. Like,
Yeah.
What happened? Like, how are the sales? Like, what's going on?
Well, most of my sales for last year, because usually like you see, like January, February, March, you have a slump after Christmas. You have that little lull period. It didn't slow down. If anything, I made more money each month than I did in December of 2020.
Wow.
And about 90% of those sales were that one ring design.
That's great. So you found a bestseller and it just kept going.
Yep. But at the same time, I also tried to keep my feet on the ground and realize this is not going to continue forever.
Yes.
Plan things out for when the momentum slows down. So I didn't stop creating new designs, promoting new stuff. And as much as this ring is very popular, I want to make sure that there was something, a solid base to keep going. I want to make sure that if the popularity of this ring suddenly stopped, that I was still making money. Luckily enough, because of my niche, I'm always selling stuff in the geeky field.
What did you end 2021 in sales? Like, how'd your sales end?
Much to my surprise, at the end of 2020, I had ended the year about 130K Canadian,
wow.
Which was the same as I had done the previous year with shows.
That's great during the pandemic when all the things were shut down.
Yeah, I was really shocked. At the end of 2021, I ended the year at 268K.
Oh my gosh. Whoa, you over doubled.
Yes. Like using a lot of the way I learned the momentum and laying the foundation, I used a lot of that info to help bring my average order value up and to kind of work at pulling my customers away from Etsy into my Shopify site.
Well, there's some ways, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the retreat too, because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to continue to grow your website audience and also optimize it for some of these like more niche people looking for Comic-Con jewelry, etc., or fantasy jewelry, whatever it is. Yeah. You're probably getting traffic from people who want fantasy football rings, but
well, one of the things I found is that one of the big things you always keep saying is that focus on your dream client. Don't try to sell to everybody. And one of the biggest things I did was really focus on, okay, I have all these other collections I sell, but I'm going to focus more of my energy on my geeky collection. And it's one of those things that has helped my business a great deal because my clientele is of all age groups, all business types. Like you get everything from someone works as a mechanic to a CEO of a company to like these techno business people, and they all converge at Comic-Con.
Yeah, I know. It's so cool, right?
The other thing I expanded on is the guy who does my production work also does 3D modeling.
Oh, so he's been able to help you with CAD.
Yeah. So what he's been doing is that he does 3D model designs. We started off with originally just a standard 3D printer to render the designs. And it advanced to the point that he was able to buy a resin printer.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to find a resin to print that we can actually use in vulcanized rubber molds. And be able to mold the model directly into the rubber and pull the waxes out after.
Great. I want to bring this back to just a couple of things and ask you a few specific questions. Like, what were some of your favorite things that by joining Momentum, like what was the most helpful for you to kind of get to the result that you desired?
Honestly, the biggest thing that for Momentum for me was having a community. Having a community of other jewelers who were in the same boat I was, and lacking the competitive attitude. Like
Mm-hmm.
the people who are like, I'm not sharing my secrets because these are my proprietary secrets. The info is very open. The same thing with the coaching program is it's so nice to have the open atmosphere to share this information and help you along. And people are happy to help you get successful.
Exactly. Which is so
So
great. I love that. What piece of advice would you give to another designer who is trying to grow from 130 to 250 or 265 a year in revenue?
streamline your focus on your clientele. Focus on a small range of products. If you don't try to do several different designs, unless they're falling into the same collection. Second, be realistic about your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things is that if you find you're good at one thing, but not good at another, take the little bit extra money, get them hire help. The other thing I would suggest is don't give up. When things get tough,
Great advice.
a lot of people give up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. You can do it. Just keep going. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something because of A, B, and C. I'll give a story.
Great advice. I mean, we spoke about this earlier with like your challenges with your family, and like, look at where you are now, which is so amazing. That's awesome. Stephanie, I want to thank you for being here today. Where can we find you?
You can find me on my website, ledragonenchanté.com. You can also find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Look up Le Dragon Enchanté. You should be able to find it there.
Can you say it in American English?
Le
Dragon
Argente. It's hard to say it, not say in French.
I know. I'm joking with you because I'm like, because I see it spelled out. I'm just like, I'm not gonna. That's so
it's funny is that the name of my business, because I wanted to go for the Gold Dragon originally, but the name was already spoken for when I registered my business. So when I was registering here in Quebec, you have to register your name in French and in English. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, the Silver Dragon, Le Dragon Enchant. And the guy at Revenue Quebec, when I was registering, goes, can I make a suggestion? Sure. Le Dragon Enchanté, because the E with the accent at the end is very sexy.
It is. It's very sexy. Great work. Well, everyone go find Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this show today. I hope you enjoyed Stephanie's story as much as I loved interviewing her. And if you'd like to learn more about our Momentum program and how it can help you double your sales next year, head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/momentum and check out the program for yourself. Fill out an application and jump on the phone with my girl who is going to talk to you a little bit more about how this program can support you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today. This is Tracy Matthews signing off. Until next time.